Hey, what's happening? Ward Wrestling Live, Florida. Now we've got this new group, and I've been trying to build it up a little bit. But one thing I really wanted to do was bring Florida wrestling to the Florida wrestling community. And I've been trying, as you guys have all seen, to get information from Brant and from coaches and just kind of post them here, just to kind of let everybody know what's going on weekly in Florida. So, another great thing that we're starting here is this week in Florida wrestling with Orlando Sentinel's own Brant Parson. This is going to be a great time. We're going to have fun. We're going to go over upcoming rankings. Obviously, you guys know to get all of his rankings and all of his information, he's got a special deal right now, $1. So let's get on there and let's get signed up so you can get all his weekly information. And we'll go over a bunch of stuff. But in the meantime, if you don't know, now you know. Here he is, Orlando Sentinel's Brant Parson. So welcome to Ward Wrestling Live. Thank you for doing this with me. I'm excited for the weeks to come and get through state, and I think this could be a good thing.
Kids, when they tell you to keep pursuing something, you can use this as an example, because I tried to keep my face for radio off video, and Dan just would not stop, and that's how this happened. So persistence goes the winner, or whatever the phrase would be.
Yes, I haven't stopped. I've been trying to get him to do something with me since I started this. So yeah, persistence, and I haven't given up on this. So I'm glad that you came on. So hey, so week one happened, right? Week one's in the books. We're blessed. Our state is open. Most of it, I know South Florida is going through some tough times. Their teams have to come up to wrestle, but for the most part, we saw wrestling. We saw the state open. I'm looking here. We had Cam Brown back to the mat, Ben Richards, Border Wars, Braves Duels, D1, Fraze, Jensen Beach, Kenny Pfeiffer. You had Clash of Titans, Battle of the Beach, the Atlanta Duels, Merida. So, we had a lot of wrestling week one.
Yeah.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from that, and what are you seeing?
Just the fact that there's wrestling, I think, is a shock to everybody. I've treated this prepping for this season like it was going to happen, but watching everything else, I think I got the feeling, though, by late summer that the FHSAA was going to take a hands-off approach to sports determining during this pandemic. Whether you agree with that or not, that was what we took from it, and it was going to be a local decision, and there are a lot of different local decisions. I think we're seeing those local decisions play out, because you're seeing tournaments that usually have 12, 16, 20 teams, and they have 5 teams, and you're seeing events that are 2-day duels down to 1, or 30 team dual meets only have 12 teams, and I have this conversation with people all the time. I feel for coaches probably more than anything, because they've not ever haven't had to navigate through something like this, and schedules change every day, and I already know of at least 2 teams that have been basically quarantined for 2 weeks, and they've not been able to go to events. And those are just the ones that tell me. I'm sure there are more out there. There are kids that are quarantined at school that aren't able to compete, and really, it's the coaches for even taking this on, I think, is commendable. Even though I'd love more information from them, I understand they're just trying to get through everything themselves. And I think just the fact that we saw events last weekend shows how hard the community worked to make sure this happened, and make sure it was done safely. And I've talked to coaches, and the hosts of these events have worked hard a lot of times to make sure people are masked up and doing the things, because even if they don't necessarily agree with the mask policies and stuff, they know that they want the sport to get in. And I think that's commendable, that the amount, wrestling has always done a lot of safety and precautions and cleaning and all those things, so they're probably best prepared to begin with. But just to see all the work that's gone in to even make the season go off, I think has been commendable. And it was fun this is my Tuesday morning. Oh my God, I've been looking at results for 48 straight hours. But it's fun to be diving in and talking to coaches and getting feedback and seeing events. And as soon as college football season is over and I'm released from my real job, I look forward to actually getting out and seeing some of these events too, and taking it in person, because I miss watching it.
Yeah, I got to. I think I've started trying to do some research, because I'm not just doing this for fun. I really fell in love with the sport, and now I'm trying to learn the kids, because I'm getting it's been really cool to take a picture and post it. And now kids they'll see me in the room and they'll DM me or they'll hit me up. And then I think I messaged you the other day. I said, man, I'm only researching the Braves duel because that's the one I'm going to this weekend to cover. And it took me hours and hours. And I'm thinking, gosh, you do what, 300 and something teams or as many teams as get you in. So, I mean, I think on behalf of me and maybe everybody in the community, at least I have seen how hard you work because I'm trying to do just a little drop of it. And you do it 10,000 times more than I do. So thank you. And it's been a blessing. It's helped me because I'm able to go right to your site. You have everything very easy on there. And I have a link to his site on my website in news and rankings. So you can go right to it, click to it, get all the information you need. Once again, $1 buys you all the stuff. But it's great.
I mean, I do all the work, and there are 385 teams, but I have a ton of help from coaches and parents and even other writers. Shannon Heaton, Northeast Florida, Matt, he and I have a partnership, and he sends me all his results from the North. Jason Fulmore, the Southeast Russell, he helps me on things, and we have things working together. Coaches send me stuff all the time. So yeah, I'm the only one doing the work, but I have a lot of help getting the information in, and certainly I could not do it without, the hundreds of people that probably contact me within a week or every couple of weeks sending me stuff. So it's a huge help to manage it all, but it is a lot of teams, 385 of them.
Yeah,
at least as last look, 385.
And that's awesome. So, just a little bit of what I want to announce. Now we're going to have a lot of the feedback that I've gotten from coaches since I've started this is how does Brent do the rankings and things like that. So this is really our first show, and we just want to kind of let you know what we're going to bring to you weekly. But one big thing we're going to touch on so that when we come on weekly, you can have a more of understanding of, why is Johnny 3 and David 2? Because David beat Johnny 3 months ago, like whatever, right? So yeah. I'm sure there's a big, deep process, and a lot of people want to know it. So I want to know how you do it. You can keep like step 2 or 3 to yourself in your back pocket, but you can kind of do your thing. But one thing we want to bring to you, and Brant and I were talking, we're going to do, I believe, team of the weeks, boys and girls. We're going to do wrestlers of the weeks, boys and girls. We're going to announce some upset of the weeks, upsets of the weeks. You guys know what I mean. And we're going to also talk about any upcoming changes. When do rankings change? When to expect rankings to come out? How to get those? He may give you the bottom 5, but you got to get the top 5 from him at Sentinel. But whatever, we really want to tell you what's coming up, how you can support Florida wrestling, the tournaments coming up, the duels coming up that we know about, some good matches to look forward to. Like we see, Goog sent me the Haggerty versus Manatee, where you got, yes, I think it's Sanchez and Lukens going at it, right?
Lopez and Lukens.
And Lukens. So some great ones. Last week we got to see 2 number 1s go at it on the mat with Mason Arnold and Chase Thompson, first week of the month in a lunchroom in Polk County. So we just want to bring you all that stuff, tell you how to get there, tell you what to do. But in the meantime, let's get right to it. So one of the big feedbacks I know, and I'm sure you get it all the time, is, hey, how does he come up with these rankings? Why is this guy this? Why does this guy land here? Why does this guy land here? Now, I know coming into this season, it's been a little more difficult because of Corona. We really haven't seen everybody wrestle. So there might be a guy that could be better than the top guy, but because a guy has wrestled and you've seen his wins and losses, he falls in a different spot. But let's just get into that. And then towards the end of the show, we'll kind of discuss what's coming up. If you want to watch some good wrestling this week, I've got a list written down that I got from off your site and off of Track Wrestling of what we should expect for wrestling this week. If you're anywhere in the state and you want to go by and see some great wrestling and support Florida wrestling, I've got a list down here, and we'll go over those and what you think. Is that cool?
Sure.
All right.
I mean, I just, obviously, if anybody's looked at my wrestling rankings, I just put all the names in a hat and just randomly draw them. I mean,
yeah, you have really, like the old bingo.
It's completely random, and
machine, right? The old bingo ball machine, right? You put them all in there, tape them to a ball. Whatever comes out goes to that certain slot.
Yes, a little background on it, I guess. I've been covering wrestling since 2004 in Central Florida. I started off as a freelance writer. I had worked in radio, again, faced for radio, and decided to pursue some other journalistic things. And they picked up wrestling. And so I covered basically Central Florida for the first 11 years. Just, I did not know what was going on in 2A because we didn't have any teams in 2A. I knew just the kids and teams in my area. Around 15, 16, I don't remember anymore. It's all a blur. I started covering the entire state. And every time I would say, well, what should I add to my coverage? I always got rating, do rankings. And I was like, I'm not doing rankings. I'm not that insane. There are other rankings out there. Like, oh no, you should do rankings. And I really spent about 2 years kind of building up to it. And my main goal was in the rankings has always been spell the kids' names right, make sure they're at the right school, make sure they're in the right class and district, and then try to then make sure that they're ranked properly based on all of their results. And I knew I'm not always going to get them right. If anybody has seen my predictions before regions and states, I get proved wrong all the time, and I love it. And I've had kids point that out to me, which I love even more. But my main goal first was just the accuracy of making sure these kids get the recognition for their actual, their name spelled right and those kind of things, because I think that is key. My first, and I know it's not in print, but my first editor that hired me always said that most people's names are in the paper twice, when they're born and when they die. And so if they're going to get in a third time, make sure you spell their name right. And as a high school athlete, my cross country coach never spelled my name right. And so all the times that I appeared in the Miami Herald for running cross country, my name was always misspelled.
I'm guessing it was Brent, not Brant.
It was with a D, actually, Brandt. So all of my clippings that I have from the Miami Herald, my name's wrong. So that was kind of a thing from there. And it's kind of grown, as you kind of hinted at. I do have this massive spreadsheet, and I keep it's 3 or 4 years old now. And I try to mark all wins and losses down, and I don't get them all. As I joked, we're at Tuesday morning. My rankings probably this week might not go live until sometime Thursday because the first week is just so crazy. But I spent a lot of time just trying to get results from anybody that's not on track. Send me pictures of score sheets, whatever. And so a lot of effort goes into that, and a lot of effort is going even before the season. Find out which kids have moved. I found out a few more transfers that I hadn't been told about already, just going through the rankings, and find out what they weigh, where they're going to go. So I mean, it's all about that part of the accuracy. I want kids in the right weight class. I don't try to guess where coaches are going to put them unless they tell me. So if you're wrestling 132, I'm probably going to put you there unless your coach has sent me a list and said they're going to go 26. So they're going to go 20.
You saw a big adjustment in your rankings from 2 weeks ago to the ones you released this coming week, because I've been trying to write them down because I remember stuff when I write. So
yeah. This week will be completely different from the preseason. I mean, you're going to see massive changes.
You can see where you change the cooks, you change some other kids, the weight classes change for some of them. So definitely, I did notice some of that.
And there are coaches out there that are openly honest, and they'll send me the lineup. And then there's others that treat it like trade secrets, and they won't tell me. And I've had times where I've had coaches tell me, ahead of the postseason, you have this kid at 95, but he's going 82, but don't tell anybody, and I'm like, so I don't change it because, but they're so, they're so tight on that. And then other ones are like, yeah, these are where they're going, come beat us.
Yeah.
And so that there's a challenge in that. I like I said, I don't try to guess what coaches have in mind for where kids are going to end up wrestling. I can go by where they are wrestling and what coaches have told me where they plan, to do them. So this first week, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of kids that grew. Out of the 385 teams, as I said, I got 130 forms from coaches. So there's over 200 teams that I didn't know anything about their kids heading into the year, hoping they were coming back, based their rankings off what they did last year. We had such a limited off season that, I saw names of kids, but there's some you don't know if they're playing football. You don't know if they're coming back, that sort of thing. If they're wrestling in the summer, usually then they're growing and that they're planning to wrestle this season. So I mean, this first week,
there's kids that were pulled out because of COVID. Like I was asking this weekend, I was at the Braves duel, and I had your rankings written down for teams that were there, And I would ask, hey, who's this kid? Because I want to get to know kids, right? And they'd be like, man, he's a senior, but his parents won't let him wrestle because of COVID. And
Yeah.
that kind of sucks. But you're seeing some of that too.
I'm seeing that, and and it takes. I usually say that by about the third or fourth week, the rankings kind of settle in, and I know who's back and who's not going to be back. Football season ends, guys start coming out. By like the second or third week, I start contacting coaches if they have a high profile wrestler that I haven't seen wrestle or show up on track and be like, hey, is this kid going to wrestle? Sometimes they say, yeah, he's coming in January, and other times, no, he's not back this year, and those changes go in. But as far as like how I do the rankings, I mean, it's based on head to head. It's based on common opponents. It's based on the ground zero of my rankings for each season start with the postseason. I do the rankings throughout the year. The postseason comes. I don't do rankings immediately after the state tournament, because to me, the state tournament is the final rankings. You don't need rankings for like a final rankings for the year. That's been done. That
At least the top 8, right? Or top 6.
that takes place in Kissimmee, and it takes place, in region tournaments on the way there. But I base my first set of looking ahead rankings on state performance. And sometimes that means a kid that lost 3 times to another one, but beat him in the state tournament, then he's going to get, that nod going into the next year, even if, he's 1-3 on a season. So there's some pushback on that. But I mean, that's the basis of where I start. And then I go from there. And I take, it's based on results. I have, I have a really tight circle of people that I can count on in different regions of the state, coaches and assistant coaches, and I can call them up or message them, text them, probably more than call, and be like, hey, what about this kid? Is this for real? What happened in this tournament? What happened in this match? And they'll tell me. Some coaches will be honest about their kids and say, hey, listen, he shouldn't be ranked that high. He's not that good. This was a fluke. And some will be like, he should be ranked higher. And then I'll look and be like, so I take all the information in. I get a lot of it. I get coaches that pump their own guys up. I get coaches that, Lou Holtz their guys and try to play them down. Scott Gomrad, who's now the AD at Winter Springs, is like the best of that, of playing down his guys. But I don't change anything based on information I get. Like if coach says my guy should be higher, I don't just go and make him higher. I go and see why he should be higher. And if I got it wrong, then I will move him up. If I missed a result or I found out that maybe a result was because he was injured or sick, then maybe I'll take that into consideration. But it's all these different things coming in. When I get to finally go to tournaments, like I'll watch Danny Byron this weekend because I'll be working because of Florida and Florida State still playing games. And, and I'll watch those. I watch any Facebook live stream. American Heritage was streaming live this past weekend. I watched their matches. But once I can go out starting in January and see more of these kids in person, then I can really kind of get a feel for what's going on out there. But it's really just taking everything in and trying to get them right. And I'll be the first to make mistakes. I'll be the first to fix them. And like I said, but the main goal to bring it all around circle, the main goal at the end is make sure these kids' names are right, make sure that their school is right, and make sure they're in the right class or weight class. And so if I have that accuracy down, then the other stuff will follow. And I don't get a lot of hate mail, so I must be doing somewhat okay.
Well, the big
I'm
thing
doing more than just pulling names out.
Yeah, the big thing that I've heard, and now that you're in front of,
I'm on the spot now. Do I need my attorney?
Yes, you want to get them involved or her. So I hear this a lot. Hey, I'm at 15. I've beaten the 10 guy and the 6 guy. Why am I at 15? Or why is my kid at 15? How do you explain a situation like that? Or I'm at 4, but I've beaten 1. Or when you get that kind of question, what response do you have?
I mean, well, if each one is individual. So you could have a kid at 15 who's beat 4 and 10, who's lost to 6 kids who aren't ranked. You could have a kid at 15 who's beat 4 and 10, and I didn't get those results because they didn't send them in, because whatever tournament they wrestled at, I didn't get them, and I didn't know it happened. It could be I missed that result, and I have it, and I overlook it. I'll make corrections based on that. It's tough. It's not linear. 1 doesn't always beat 2. 2 doesn't always beat 3. 3 doesn't always beat 4. Sometimes 4 will beat 1 and lose to 10 and lose to 12. And you try to take all of that in, and certainly, like I said, I look at results. My goal each week is to look at every single result that I get, every duel, every bout, every single thing, look at every kid, every team, and try to make sure I'm not missing kids. And that's what comes in week one also, because there's just so many kids I didn't know about, freshmen coming in, guys stepping up from junior varsity who are really good. But I want to look at everyone, but I do miss them. So, and there are times, sometimes when weights get moved and I may not have a record of something that happened 2 years ago or something that happened over the summer. And so if you let me know and there's proof of those, and it's not an instance where, well, you beat him, but you're 10-12 on the season.
Now let me ask you this: you're supposed to get information from coaches.
I do get.
Now you get some, you don't get some. You see
Right.
some matches, you don't see matches, right? And that kid might have beat kid B at a national tournament that you really weren't kind of tuned in at, right? So would you say, hey kids, I'm on Facebook too, DM me your result, right? Or would you prefer they push their coach to do it?
I don't have any rules on that. I'm reachable through Facebook, through email, through Instagram, through Twitter, through lots of different things. And I have kids that email me. I have kids that I've now probably had email relationships with for 2-3 years talking results, and they'll tell me if they beat someone. Some of them will tell me when they lose to someone. I don't have a problem getting information from whoever. It's just, my only thing is I don't make a change just because you contact me on it. I need to be able to justify.
Well, what I'm saying is
change.
information is key. So if you're out there as a young man and you're wrestling in the state of Florida and you're wondering, how come my ranking doesn't change? How come I've never made the top 20? How come I've never made the Parson ranking or whatever?
Send me your CV. Send me your resume.
Yeah, there's only a few reasons why that's happening, right?
Yeah.
You might have these big wins, but nobody knows about it. So send them in, man. I mean, listen, I've got a hold of them pretty easy. I found them on social media. But that's cool. And I think it's something to talk about. I think as we go week in and week out, maybe some of the things that we'll talk about is, hey, this week you're going to see number 11 move up to 6, and here's why. And then maybe people will start to be like, okay, I'm starting to get it, and that'll just help a little bit more, right?
I will say I enjoy it when like a 4 wrestles a 5 and a 4 wins in sudden victory, or 11 wrestles a 12 and the 11 wins. I'm like, oh, I got that one right. Because sometimes you're talking about a kid in, up in the north and a kid in the southwest, and they probably will only see each other in Kissimmee, but maybe they wrestle like that one time and you get it right. And then there are times where I'm excited because a kid ranked 4 beats the kid 3 and I move them up. And I know that happened a couple of times already this weekend, but I haven't had a lot of changes in the top of the rankings other than moving weights around. So I can't say there's been like a lot of huge upsets. So it's not like my whole process, I want to be right, but I'm happy when I am right, because then I feel like the product is good.
Yeah. It seemed like, I was at the Braves duel this weekend, so that's what I covered. So I didn't really see a lot going on. I did go on to your results page that you released, and I saw that the top guys at Osceola pretty much went chalk. The top guys at Palm Bay went chalk. The top guys, the 2 Cody brothers at Masters, went chalk. I saw a lot from around the state that are ranked that kind of went chalk. I was at the Braves duel. I mean, listen, we had an 8 and a 6 go at it. We had, let's see, a 3 and a 1 we saw go at it, a 3 and a 5, 2 number 2s. But the big thing is we're sitting there in a lunchroom. So you've got, and this is just and this is because South Florida isn't wrestling.
Yeah.
They're coming up here, and we're getting to see kids that we only typically see once or twice a year. So, I'm sitting at the Braves duel in Polk County, and I think I posted this. One mat, you've got Carrollwood Day and AHDB. And then on the other mat, you've got Tenor Rock and Palmetto Ridge, right? Well,
yeah,
including everybody coaching and reffing the Palmetto Ridge match, we all look to the left, and there's Mason Arnold and Chase Thompson wrestling, which, when are we ever going to see that at this point in the season up in Lakeland?
Yeah.
I mean,
And actually, a real quick point on that, because I want to going into rankings. Mason Arnold was ranked number 1 at 285. He wrestled 285 last year for Tampa Jesuit. Moved to Carroll a day. They also have Desmond Mahmoudi there, who transferred over. They both played football there and wrestling. They're both wrestling this season. They were both wrestled mostly at 285, but Mason was going to go 220, and so he will actually be ranked 220 this week, even though he and Chase Thompson wrestled it.
So now they're going to be 1 and 2, right?
They'll be 1 and 2 now, but just to kind of piggyback off that, because I get this a lot of times. Why do you have two kids from the same team at the same weight? And again, and this happens a lot with your deeper programs. Your of course, Lake Highland's not ranked in my regular rankings. They're in my all class. Your Lake Gibson, your South Aids, they'll have 2-3 guys at a weight that could place at state or make it to state. And I don't know which one's going to finally be the kid that they wrestle in the postseason, but they deserve to be ranked. So I do have teams or kids from the same team ranked in the same weight class at times, because again, I don't try to play coach. I don't try to predict or pretend I know what Vic is going to do with his guys or what Danny's going to do with his. So I did have 2 Carroll a day kids ranked in the top 10 with both Mason and Desmond there, not knowing who was going to do what, but it does look like Mason will be able to go 220 this year, as the season goes on. But I just wanted to use that as an example of another question I get all the time is how come you have 2 kids from this school ranked in the rankings? They won't be like that in a state tournament. I'm like, well, I'm not trying to predict a state tournament. I'm trying to tell you who the 20 best wrestlers, in my opinion, are at that weight class
this week, right
now, this
right.
week. And I can't knock a kid out of the top 20 because he's the second string maybe at his school when he's beaten all the kids that would be below him. So that's a unique thing about my rankings. By the time the postseason comes, I do take out doubles based on who starts and who doesn't make it, and then bring the other kids back after the postseason if they're going to be coming back. But that is you did remind me there of a question I get all the time, which is how come some weight classes have 2 from the same team, and that's because I don't know what weight class they may end up finally at, or who will end up being the starter, who's going to win the wrestle off, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and you may know more than you know, obviously more than me, because you get information from every tournament around the state. I was just here, but in your defense, there was an 11 that knocked off a 10. There was a 5 that knocked off a 4. So those type of matches that you see, that you're like, man, I like those matches. There was a 2 and a 4 that wrestled this weekend with Tapia and Bennett. That was great. We had 2 number 1s go at it with Hayworth. Was it Weidler and
Wheeler's actually a number 2, and he went against Washburn.
2 number 2s. I'm sorry, Weidler and Washburn. But that Mason Arnold chase match, like you said, it went to
sudden victory.
That was fun to watch. And then we had an upset of the day. We had an unranked Gavin Patton. Sorry, I pronounced my T's because I used to get T's if I said Patton and not Patton. So I do that. But he knocked off a number 13 kid at the Gibson duel. So
and he'll be ranked this week. And you and I talked about that before the show. I don't get forms from everybody, and that was just one where he wasn't on my radar. He was not in the postseason last year, and now he is on my radar, and he will be ranked. But that's a lot of that happens in week 1 too, where guys that I wasn't made aware of ahead of time, and it happens. But he'll be on there this week. And
one kid I wanted to bring up, because he fought his ass off, and he only went I think he went 1 and 3 or something. But he fought his ass off, and he's a ranked kid, and I think I kind of want to know what you might do with him. He had to go against Middlebrook, Thompson, and Arnold.
Yeah, that's quite a lineup.
Antonio Petraglia, and he fought him hard. I don't want to say obviously he lost, but that's a tough day for my man Petraglia. But do you also take those into consideration
absolutely.
when you rank him? Like, even though he lost to those 3, but he fought him, does that give him a little movement?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's how you lose. Also, there's some guys that, and I can't watch every match. Like I go back after the state tournament. I watch every single match. I don't get to watch every single match each weekend. Sometimes I don't know why a kid got pinned in the first minute. Maybe he makes a mistake. Sometimes kids will get pinned, late in the match because they're trying to make something happen. But if it's a score, you can kind of tell what happened, and sometimes you can even see how the match played out. So guys that wrestle other kids tough. Just to give you an idea on Antonio, he was again, I did not have a form from Palmetto Ridge this year. I did not know weight changes. He was 182 last year. He's probably going to wrestle 95 this year, it looks like, but he was 220 this weekend. So I put him up there. He was ranked 16th. When the rankings come out, he'll probably be on the edge of the top 10 for 220. I'll probably move him back down to 95 once I know that he's going to be there. But yeah, so he doesn't get punished for losing for that lineup, because he really went. I mean, he had one of the toughest sets of kids that he wrestled this week, and there's a few of those. There's a couple of Fort Myers where they're 4-3 or 3-4 on the weekend, and their 4 losses are all top 5 kids, and you're like, well, I can't punish you for that. And so yeah, so a kid that goes 3-2 at Braves with that lineup is probably, to me, has a little more pull than maybe someone who went 5-0 but didn't face those guys and that sort of thing. So that all goes into the determination for the rankings each week.
Nice. Yeah, I really wanted to ask about him because I watched. I think after the bout, I went up to Coach Ice and I was like, that poor kid.
Yeah,
he went through it, man. But I've private messaged him since then, and I was like, man, you have got to be better today than you were yesterday because of that. Just those 3 matches. So good for him, and I'm glad to see he'll be moving up, and this will be stuff that we'll talk about weekly. Obviously, there's not a ton. I did want everybody to kind of understand the thought process behind Brant. He does not just sit there and throw darts at different schools, different programs.
I don't have any favorites too. I just want to make that known. Sometimes sometimes and there is a bias by where I'm located, and I try not to have that bias. I'm actually in Brevard County is where I live. I work in Orange County. But I really try not to have a bias. If I have a bias, it would be for Miami Palmetto. So you might see some Miami Palmetto kids that are ranked higher because that's my alma mater. But Anthony down there, he'd probably get mad and be like, come on, man, don't do that to our kids. So really, there's no bias beyond just maybe some regular bias where if you do wrestle in 3A16, you might have a little bit of an edge. If I'm looking at 2 kids that haven't wrestled that are in different areas and one wrestles, for Mick at Southwest, then that might get the, those kind of biases go in, which are maybe fair or not. But if you're in a program that usually gets more out of their guys, sometimes that'll play in, or in districts where you finish 3rd in 3A16, that's like being a district champ in 5 or 6 other districts. But there's no bias in my teams. I don't have any favorites. I don't have any kids that I pick over other kids. I really, when I do this, I almost try to take names and rankings out of it, or names and schools out of it, and just really try to focus on what's happened on the mat beyond maybe those comparative biases of schools and areas, sort of thing.
Now, one other question: you've started to do this all class ranking thing.
Yes. Another thing took years for people to convince me to do. That they're always asking for it.
So something that I heard was, and I just want to get everything over the boat today, and then we can right.
Yeah.
Because I think people need to hear how you make your decisions, right? So they can understand it. We're never going to make everybody happy, right? But obviously, it's great. You've started the all-class rankings. You've got a kid that's ranked number 1 out at Palm Bay at Tyler Perot, but he doesn't make the top 4 in the all-class ranking. How do you come up with stuff like that? Now, maybe he made it in the 2nd all-class ranking. I know the first one, he wasn't there. But something like that.
I mean, I think that was actually, I spoke to his father. I think that was the one complete overlook on mine. I mean,
okay.
It's a work in progress. I'm just trying to pull them up to see where I have it going so far on this one. I do believe that was like the one I truly overlooked, and it was my fault. And I
was just wondering, because I had seen some guys, and I'm like, I know there's not 4 classes, there's only 3. So the easiest way would be I mean, there's 4 there's like 4 regions during.
Yeah, I have him 5th now. He's behind two returning state champs and a couple of state runner-ups. But yeah, I think that might have been the one where I didn't have. I tell you, the all class is tough, and I really didn't want to do it. Honestly, probably part of the reason I did it was because of Lake Highland, because they're still involved in Florida wrestling, and they're still here. And while they're not competing in FHSA, they're going to be in tournaments here. And honestly, unfortunately the rankings take so much. I haven't been able to totally do this, but I wanted the rankings initially in my head was to kind of flavor my writing. And I wanted to write more previews and I wanted to write more game stories, and the rankings have become all encompassing, which is fine. But I wanted to be able to like preview the Danny Byron and say, here are kids that are going to be there and get people excited. Because I think rankings, as much as it's fun, if I can take the human element out of it and not feel bad for all these kids when they lose, and I do, I think it's fun to do, and I think it creates excitement about the sport. But at the same time, it's a pretty big endeavor because of the human element, and because I don't want to have kids in the wrong spot. But the idea behind them is to create excitement for the sport. And as you're kind of learning and doing, is when you look at them before you go to an event, then you can say, wow, these kids are ranked. You can kind of look at something and say, wow, that kid's 6th, that kid's 4th, this should be a good match, or as you saw, upsets or things like that. And that's kind of the idea around it. Was I do these rankings, I get them done, and I'd write all these stories, but the rankings take like 4 or 5 days every week to get them right, and I'm not writing as much. But that was my original plan, was to be able to preview these great events and bring publicity to it. And I need that for Lake Highland.
Well, I understand too, because I posted a picture of a kid being lifted and I got some backlash, right? Because of how it ended, right? So that kind of hurt me a little bit. And I kind of was down in the dumps a little, because I felt like, man, I'm doing so good for the community.
Yeah.
Attacked about this one thing, and it really made me feel shitty. But then, I think it affected what I did this weekend, because I posted those cards. You saw those great cards I made for the Braves.
Yeah.
And I think in a perfect situation, I really wanted to put the score on those cards, right? Because I think that would have been great for the community to see. But I mean, it almost gave me like diarrhea to do that, because I was so worried about getting another stupid phone call about I have no character and I have no this and I have no that I was afraid to do it. I did release the upset of the week, upset of the day, and that had me like up until 2 a.m, because I was so worried that I'm going to get this backlash. And so if anybody ever wanted me to do rankings, I think I'd have to like kindly decline, because I love people too much, and then I feel bad when maybe they feel bad. So I don't know how you do it. God bless you for doing it.
I mean, I try to paint it that way, and I'll be honest, I don't get much hate mail at all. Maybe they just don't even deal with me, and maybe you guys at tournaments, you hear everybody say all the things they're saying about me, but I don't get a lot of angry stuff. I get coaches sometimes, that passive aggressively might say something like, "Oh boy, you really missed this," but I think they see for what it is. I try to be honest with it. It is not perfect. It is, what matters is what happens in March, and certainly, what the kids benefit from doing a sport is greater than any of these rankings can do. But the kids look at it, they get excited about it or get angry about it. Maybe if they more of them saw it, I'd get more hate mail or questions. But for the most part, I don't. But I try to keep it with the knowledge as I'm just like everybody else. I'm just trying to do this to help build the sport. And I think they understand that. I think they appreciate that. And I know I keep saying this, but I think it goes a long way. Just the goal to be accurate more than right, I think, is a selling point to it. And I want it to be accurate. And that starts, like I said, with the kids' names. And if I get them wrong, I apologize and I fix them right away. And that is one thing I will go in and fix right away. I don't make changes to rankings because it's a huge process. I don't know if people can kind of fathom it, but when I'm done with the rankings, it takes about 3 hours to put the presentation together of all of them and update our site and all of that. So, I mean, it's a huge process even beyond that. So when my rankings are done, like Wednesday night, it's probably Thursday when I make them live. But if I have a name spelled wrong, I will change it right then. I will go through that whole process and redo it, because
I've messaged you before, right? I'm like, hey, I think you got a typo.
Yeah, and so that's the main thing is the accuracy of it, and so I mean it's a daunting thing, and like I said, I've had kids that come up to me, and I can still probably name all of them that come up and at the state tournament and tell me I got it wrong, and they won, and I predicted them not to win, and that makes me happy, and I'm happy for them, and at the same time, sometimes I get them right. But I think people understand that it's none of it is in painted in a negative light. It is based, and I think because of the amount of time I put into it, I avoid maybe a lot of those nasty emails. But for the most part, it's positive. If it was negative all the time, I don't think I could handle it, and I can handle a lot. I mean, I've been in this business in some form or another. I did talk radio for a couple of years. I mean, I'm used to people yelling at me on the radio for a couple hours a day. So I can handle those kind of things, but I don't know if I would want to do it if there was a lot of negativity on it. But I don't see it, and it's fun for me, and I think it's fun for everybody that gets to read them. And I have a ton of support. And I mean, that's the other thing that's come out of this is, you know, my job is not covering high school wrestling. At least it wasn't. I'm the sports online editor for our website. I'm in charge of everything Orlando Sentinel sports that comes online. I work on our homepage shifts. I have, I work election coverage. I mean, I work a bunch of different things. I'm able to do more and more wrestling because of the support that I've had, to where people walk around my office now. Well, when we had an office, and they're like, why is it every day wrestling is the top subscriber? Why is wrestling the top 5 things on the website? Why? And they think that there's some like magic bullet, like, oh, we should do that for everything. I'm like, it takes a long time to kind of build that up. But because of that, because of all the people that support it and subscribe and sometimes hate subscribe, I'm able to do it, a lot more during my normal work hours and not at night and weekends as I do, but not nearly as much as I did when I started, because there's been such tremendous support for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, $1, you get what is it, 6 months?
I think that's the deal. I don't know how long that deal lasts. Hopefully it's still up. But the Cyber Monday, Black Friday, whatever deal we have right now, it's great for whatever reason. They always have these great deals right at the start of wrestling season. And so I always, it's like 3 months free or $1 for 6 months. And usually I try to get people to sign up then. If you want to, I'm not gonna say what you can do after the season, but if you want to follow the season, you can do it really on the cheap. And certainly they see those numbers and they know where you guys are going when you're a subscriber. And that's why, like, our publisher and editor of the whole, thing knows who I am. Nobody knows who I am, but they know who I am because of wrestling. So, so sign up. It's a buck, I think.
Now, girls wrestling Florida, it's sanctioned next year is
Yes.
the dance, but we're starting to see girls grow. I think there was almost 400 girls last year at the state tournament. Your rankings have typically been only like the top 4 or top 5 per weight class.
I go for 6, but yeah, it's
Are we going to start to see that expand maybe into 10 and maybe go from there? Or is there still not enough to where you can do it as like a top 20 per weight class like the boys?
There's not enough events. And I don't get a lot of information. I mean, I've had help from some girls coaches who've been great and helped me set up the rankings. There may be a bias in it because if you wrestle in the unsanctioned girls state, that's usually a good basis to start from. But like last weekend, there was the ladies Clash of the Titans. That was my only female only event that I had results for or received anything from. And there were some great events there. And I should point out Morgan Morrison is the one that's going to be on my Wrestlers of the Week from Matanzas, because she was the state runner-up last year and she pinned the state champ in the 162-pound final at Clash of Titans. So I have a rankings change there. She gets to move to number 1. But it's one of those things I could fill out 10 girls probably per weight, but I don't know if they would be right. And so I want to make sure I could go 30 deep on individual rankings in the boys, but I want to make sure that I'm highly focused on making sure the ones that I do have ranked are correct. And I'm guessing next year there'll be more events. There'll be more standardization, if you will, of how coaches will have to follow FHSA, regulations, bylaws, whatever. And there's just right now it's a work in progress, just trying to build that relationship up, just as I have with the boys, and get coaches to get me information and let me know what girls are coming back. I've not had much luck on that kind of stance and hearing from coaches and getting girls schedules and those sorts of things. But I wanted to give them that showcase and give them the rankings. I know they've been well received. I have 4 daughters. If anybody does not know, one of them did wrestle for like a like a class when she was 8 years old. She went and watched her brother try it, and he didn't take to it, and she did. She goes, if you ever see a curly haired girl sitting next to me, she'll be at knockout probably the second day. She goes to tournaments with me and watches. And last year, a friend of mine you've had on, Dan Tree at Suncoast, he took her into a corner for a match, and she coached the match. And so
Oh, very cool.
so I don't know if she'll ever wrestle, but she likes it. And so I have a special interest in the girl side of it because I have so many girls. And so I do want to push to make that a bigger part of my coverage. And it's a growing ranking. So, but it'll probably just stay at 6 for this year. And then we'll see about building it up next year when more teams are following along with the same kind of standardization.
And that's awesome. And so we saw the week one open. We really only saw kind of some weekend events that we spoke about, but we're going into week 2, and there's a lot going on. I mean, I know there's some individual things going on, like just some single duels going on during the week.
Yes.
We spoke about a little bit, like tonight, there's a tri-duel at Masters Academy. I think tomorrow we talked about the Haggerty versus Manatee, where you're going to have those 2 top-ranked kids going at it. That'll be a fun one to watch. But as all, so first things first, if you go on to his listing, you'll see like a fit to win thing down at Countryside Fit to Win, because of the laws and everything down there right now. That has changed to where it's a holiday duel at D1.
Okay.
If you go on,
So yeah, I didn't even know that. Now I have to. I will take.
if you go on to track, you'll see it there. But that was the only thing I saw different from your site to track. And then I saw some that you had that are on track. So, but listen, there's wrestling happening this week, especially this weekend, all over the state, from, not including like South Florida. There's some stuff going on in Fort Myers and Jupiter, Flagler, Cocoa, Hernando, but there's a lot of great tournaments out there that are going on this weekend. I could run through them real quick if you'd like me to. They've got the D2 prelims at Flagler. We've got the Cocoa Junior and Senior High Classic at Cocoa. We've got the North Conference Tri-Match over at Jupiter High School. We've got the Haggerty versus Manatee. We talked about that. We've got Jimmy Brown Law Firm Invitational at Hernando Friday and Saturday. And if any of these are listed, but you've had to cancel or something, just let Mr. Parsons know, and he'll get it updated. But this weekend, you got the Bulldog Brawl down at St. Cloud. You've got the Kiwanis Invite. It's the 39th annual one there. You got Capital City Classic in Tallahassee. The Viper Invite at Space Coast. The Danny Byron, you've got 2 days of that. I think one day is an IBT. The other day is a duel. You've got a lot of big teams coming up because there's no wrestling down south. So you're going to get to see some really good kids there. The Captain Archer Memorial, JV Classic, and their Varsity Classic down at Charlotte. If you want to see some young kids that are absolutely incredible to watch, those Charlotte kids are something else. So if you can get down there and watch that. Deltona duels at Deltona High School. And then the holiday duels at D1, which we just spoke about. He's got to separate because of the room. So he's doing a morning duels tournament, and then they'll go away, and then he's bringing in an afternoon duel tournament. So they'll have that. You've got the Point Verta duels and the girls round robin, the Ryan Blackwell Invitational, the Southwest Florida Christian in Fort Myers, William Nather Memorial, Merritt Island, Coach Kelly Hurricane Team Challenge down at Manatee. And then you've got a couple I saw where there's a couple of girls that I saw in here too, some events, but you've got the Steadwell, Battle for the Belt, Dunes Ladunes, Rumble in the Park in Winter Park. So listen, if you're anywhere from, I don't know, Naples up in Florida,
you're going to find something
that you can get to watch and support some really, really good wrestling. So please get out there, support your teams. It really helps. It definitely allows FHSAA to see that we're doing this successfully and we're supporting each other. Shout out to all the coaches out there who have had to make adjustments. I've been to these tournaments. I know it's tough, especially that tournament I was at last weekend where you can only have 50% of the people in there. I know it's tough. We'll get through it, but thank you for what everybody's doing out there. But with that being said, we got a lot of upcoming tournaments there. You see anything there where we might? Are there any of those tournaments where you'd say, hey, we got some opportunities to see some like state?
Yeah, I mean, I always love Captain Archer because that's I think where you can really get your first barometer on Southwest Florida. They're so deep at some weight classes, and they're all usually at Captain Archer. Now, we're saying all this. I don't know if there are schools that aren't going that are normally at these events. I don't know every county's restrictions, but I always like Captain Archer because you really, like I said, you get a really idea of what's going on in Southwest Florida. Danny Byron is always loaded. I like Danny Byron because I'll be able to watch it because they'll have live video from it. St. Cloud has got a tremendous event this weekend. I was talking to Eric last night and just some of the teams he has coming in. I know Palm Bay is going to be there. Brandon's going to be there. A couple other teams that will be in the mix. I said, make sure I get some results at that. But again, as we did the first weekend, I think some of these will look different. I've heard the Capital City Classic is down, so I think 5 teams because of restrictions and travel. And so that is a 2-day event that's not going to look the same. It's going to be a round robin and not one of the what it normally is like an early, much as Captain Archer tells you about Southwest Florida, Capital City Classic has always been kind of a barometer for Northern Florida. We won't get that this year. Kiwanis is going to be loaded at Hernando. That's always a great tournament with just, I like the tournaments that the semifinals, when you see the pairings, you're like, oh, I need to make sure I wake up to be there. And you'll see that at a Kiwanis. You'll see that some of those events. Capital City normally is like that. But again, and not to keep belaboring it, but this is just the reality. And some of these events are going to be smaller right now because of protocol. And there are some events that are but on the flip side, there are events that are starting up that are small, that are feeding to those that can't travel. And I think that's a benefit too. There was an event in Cocoa this past weekend, the back to the mat brawl, and that had never been held, and it got to be an event for schools around here that aren't able to travel outside like this area. And so you're seeing more of those events. These big events will grow back out to their size, I'm sure. But just lots of opportunities out there to see wrestling, and in a lot of cases see good wrestling.
Yeah, and and I don't know, is something that's happening, and like I said, I'm seeing it on a smaller version than you're seeing it. But it seems like because these tournaments are smaller, but it's like for example, I mean, this weekend, I think, isn't Southwest and South Dade both at Danny Byron?
Danny Byron's always loaded like that. But yeah, it's stuff like that. You're going to see those kind of teams. I mean, you saw it at Lake Gibson, down at Fort Myers. I mean, you had South Dade and Charlotte wrestling in a duel. You have like some of these top teams that are just facing each other because they're going to the best events.
That's where wrestling is, right?
Yeah.
Because they can't wrestle in South Florida, so they're coming up here. So we're getting to see.
Yeah, in fact, this would be the South Dade duels are usually this weekend and the second weekend. And of course, Osceola usually goes there. So Danny Byron is actually usually the first weekend. Anyway, so South Dade will be at Danny Byron, when usually this weekend they would have their duels, and Southwest Miami would be at that, and a lot of other Dade teams. So I mean, it's creating some different meetings and teams going to different locations. But again, it shows the tenacity, the survival instincts of the sport, that they want to make sure that it succeeds, and they're doing what they can to do that. And as I keep saying, however it looks, they're doing it. And I think that's the main thing. So you can be mad that some of these events don't have enough fans or don't have enough teams, but back in April, we were wondering if they would even have these events. So I'm just thrilled that there's wrestling for us to talk about each week.
And I think it's a lot of these coaches just putting their foot on the gas pedal and saying, we're not quitting this. But what was the girl's name that you shouted out?
Morgan Morrison from Matanzas.
Yeah, so Morgan from Matanzas. And we talked about Gavin Patton getting a big win. That'll probably get him up into the rankings. So shout out to you two. Moving forward, we'll have a team of the week, boys and girls, and a wrestler of the week, boys and girls, correct?
I don't do wrestler of the week for a boy. I do 14 of them. Again, the human element, I couldn't pick one. because there's so many worthy. It's hard enough picking just one per weight class, but I do have a wrestlers of the week, one kid for each weight class that will go live pretty much when we're done with this. I just need to make it live.
So we'll shout, then we'll have 14 of them. All right.
Yes.
And that's fantastic. And we'll definitely get into what events to watch for. I'm sure as we move forward, you and I'll probably figure this out.
We'll figure it out as we go. I talk too much, so we'll have to figure out how to shut me up to make it shorter and more compact.
Oh no, we can talk as long as you like. I'm sure everyone loves it. But it's great, man. I'm absolutely honored. Thank you so much for doing this with me. And I know I've been a pain in the ass to you. I've been like just prodding you to come on with
Not
me.
a pain, but it definitely you were persistent, and I wanted to make sure it was done in something that was promoting the sport and not just me. I would rather promote everybody else. So this works, and I'm glad that you finally talked me into doing it.
Yeah, and it was fun. And thank you so much. And I'll see you next Tuesday.
Looking forward to it.
All right, buddy. Take care.